for attending today's webinar, Keys to Building a Successful MSP Business with AWS, where you'll learn how CorpInfo is becoming one of the fastest growing premier partners in AWS history. My name is Jarrett Plant, and I will act as your moderator today. Before we start, just a few housekeeping items. First, if you have any technical difficulties, contact me with a direct message in the chat, and I'll make sure that it is addressed. Second, if you have any questions for the presenter today, please send them in the chat box, and we'll address them at the end in the order of which they came in. Now that we have that out of the way, please allow me to introduce our presenters. Joining us today from CorpInfo is Stephen Garden, Vice President of Cloud Services, and Timothy Fox, Head of Services. From CloudCheckr, we have Aaron Klein, Co-founder and COO. Please join me in welcoming them, and Aaron, the floor is now yours.
Hi, thank you, Jared, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. I just want to say a few quick words and thank Stephen and Tim for coming on and helping us today. Everyone, I'm going to brag a little bit for them because they may not do it for themselves. For those of you who don't know, and CorpInfo, we've been working with CorpInfo for about 24 months, and we've watched them go from literally zero to a multi-million-dollar organization in terms of AWS Reseller and managed services, and their growth is astounding and amazing. We look across thousands of users, and I can assure you from the CloudCheckr perspective that they have one of the most amazing stories. So I just want to thank them before handing it off to them. I want to thank them for joining us today and sharing their story with everyone on this webinar. And so with that, I will pass it over to the folks at CorpInfo.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for those kind words and revealing that confidential information about our business as well. Just kidding. No, seriously, great introduction. I really appreciate your sentiments there. And as Aaron said, we have been working with CloudCheckr now for approaching on 3 years this year. So it's been a real pleasure to work with their business as well and see how they've iterated and improved the product over the years as well. It's been great. So a really successful partnership for us overall. So as Aaron said, my name is Steve Garden. I'm the VP of Cloud Services over here at CorpInfo. We've got a couple of parts to what we were going to talk about today. I'm joined by my colleague Tim Fox, who heads up our Cloud MSP business. And I was just going to kick off and give some overall advice and tips for things that we found to be key factors that are contributing to our fast progression with AWS and the partnership. At the time when we were announced as a premier partner with Amazon, we were told that we were actually the fastest partner to go from the tier 1, the registered tier, right the way through to the top tier. We did in about 18-month period. So what I'm going to do is just kind of talk about the 2 or 3 points that I think really helped us to get that rapid growth. And then also Tim is going to share basically how we've been able to reinvent our MSP business around AWS and the partnership with Amazon, and specifically how CloudCheckr has played a really key and important role in that piece. So the partnership with AWS, we're about 3 years in now. We're a consulting partner, premier consulting partner, and one of the real standout things for me in the partnership is it's really taken us into whole new realms. We've worked on all sorts of weird and wonderful different projects. Latter part of last year, for example, we were helping one of the biggest ticketing companies in the world basically scale their infrastructure so that they could meet the massive demand that the Star Wars movie was reaching. We've been fortunate enough to work with 2 different customers on Super Bowl projects, one of whom was running a very large-scale advertising campaign during the break periods. Another one was actually running a very large data analytics project where they were ingesting information from smart TVs across the US during the project. And these are just some of the typical things that AWS and the typical problems that AWS is addressing in the marketplace. And for us as a consulting business, it's been fantastic to just have the opportunity to get involved in some really exciting parts of IT. We do a lot of the traditional things as you would expect, migrating workloads to AWS, helping customers manage what they have up there, etc. But for me, really, it's the exciting ones are the ones that people want to hear about. So we always love talking about that. Couple of data points about the business quickly. I mean, one thing that people don't often realize is that we're actually a 30-year-old company founded in 1983. We've successfully been able to reinvent our business over the last 3 years through the partnership with Amazon, through kind of moving to the cloud. A few data points about the business. We have a lot of certifications. We've been audited by AWS, managed to complete a large number of migrations during that time, and onboarded a lot of new customers to the platform as well. Right, so just a couple of headline sort of quick tips and things that really for us were very, very important when we set about building the relationship with AWS, and this would be my advice to anyone on the call that is responsible for running and building a consulting partnership with Amazon. The first one is just to be very selective about the partnerships that you pick. You know, there's a lot of truth to the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. You know, we fundamentally believe that focus was the key factor that got us to move so quickly, because, you know, we have a very strict rule of not investing time into things that we aren't truly committed to, and that's meant that we can put a lot of resources in one direction. And to be honest, you know, mastering one of these cloud platforms is a tough ask in its own right, but trying to master all of the public cloud platforms and maintain a legacy business was just something that if we tried to do, we would not have been successful at all, in my opinion. Second thing is to make a, you know, defined and distinct investment. For us, you know, this really did start out with just a small group, 2 or 3 people, but I think that really resonated with Amazon, and the fact that they had a familiar team to work with and consult with on the build out of the business was really key. The other thing that really appeared to us very early on as essential was to really focus on how we define ourselves as a partner. There's now about 25,000 different partners in Amazon's ecosystem, so it's really important to create your own identity. And for me, that identity comes around probably 3 different areas. You know, product, service, differentiation. Are you the master of Redshift? Do you specialize in Windows workloads? That kind of specialism. There's also definitely the potential to specialize around geography. I should have mentioned this earlier, but we're actually based out of the US West Coast, so have a big focus on local touch clients. And the third piece really is about picking a vertical. There's definitely some verticals that are adopting the cloud at a far higher pace. Those can be attractive targets to pick, and likewise there's also verticals that are slower to adopt, and you can take different types of services into that market. Final point really was that we really actually tried to embrace what the Amazon Partner Network asked us to do. I'm always quite surprised when people treat the steps and requirements that Amazon outlines as sort of annoying steps or hurdles, because for us really we just set those as goals that we obsessed about surpassing. And you know, I've flagged a couple of the important ones for us that we actually really felt, you know, weren't actually just boxes to tick, but they were things that really actually did drive our business forward. And the first one, as you'll see circled on this slide, is all around the certifications. So making sure that you actually genuinely do have the right quality and caliber of professional services consultants in-house, to me was a very important factor, and we actually just let out very strong with our investment in that area. In a similar vein, the Amazon competency helps you with your differentiation. You might want to be someone that gets a reputation for doing a lot of mass migration work, and the migration competency therefore is a particularly appealing one to go for. Similarly with things like healthcare and Windows workloads. For us, you know, picking up and getting signed off in those competencies really helped us to differentiate and sort of define who we are. And again, in standing out, we wanted to actually be able to say that we were audited and signed off by Amazon as having skills in that area. So that's the final piece really, you know, embrace the APN. There's a lot of information published from the portals, a lot of resources made available, but really, you know, the requirements that are laid out aren't just sort of hurdles to annoy anyone. They really are there designed to help develop your business. So that's all from me on just a headline about you know, how we built the partnership and how we are you know, growing with AWS, and the key sort of business topics around how we got there. But I'm going to pass over to Tim now, who's going to talk specifically about the MSP business that we've reinvented around AWS, and specifically our use of CloudCheckr in providing a world-class solution for clients that need to have their workloads supported on an ongoing basis.
Thanks, Stephen. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the world is changing. This is one of my favorite quotes from Scott McNealy, the former CEO of Sun Microsystems. We believe we are moving out of the Ice Age, the Iron Age, the Industrial Age, the Information Age, to the Participation Age. You get on the net and you do stuff. You IM, you blog, you take pictures, you publish, you podcast, you transact, you distance learn, you telemedicine. You are participating on the internet, not just viewing stuff. And the concept here is that the world is changing, and it's changing everywhere. And in this particular case, we're talking about the changing format of the way IT looks today. So I'm going to take a minute and sort of get on my soapbox and talk about the way I'm actually sort of fundamentally shifting how we think about MSP and how that relates specifically to how the cloud functions today. So there are some overarching sort of ideals behind that. And the first is we talk about a service over a server. So in the old days, everyone was really high on making sure that they had unique and defined names for all of their servers in their architecture. Now, the server names don't matter. Whereas before, we might be arguing about whether we're going to use cartoon characters or Greek gods or Egyptian gods and how we're naming our servers. Today, that doesn't matter in the cloud. And part of the reason that's true is because in the cloud, everything is ephemeral. Everything has a chance of going away. Because in the cloud, we have an expectation that we may not need something in 10 minutes. So we may need more of them. So we have to sort of plan on how we're actually doing that. And of course, all of this makes hardware passe. Nobody cares about the boxes we're carrying in our data center anymore. Now it really is about the virtualization of everything we're doing. All of this leads to that idea of sheep instead of pests. So the idea there being we really want to not necessarily care about the individual servers, but care about the services so much that we don't care if we lose any server at any one point. You know, all of this around the cloud concept are you only pay for what you need. You know, Amazon that's the big sort of mantra that they have with regard to how you're utilizing the web services is you buying things as you need them and you're only paying for them. But of course there's a counter to that, which is you pay for what you use. So you also need to sort of deal with that particular piece. And also in this particular case, a big thing that I drive through not only my team, but when we're having conversations with customers, is really the concept of convention over configuration. In other words, we should be creating standards on how they're actually setting things up so we're not rolling our own servers on any given instance. All of this sort of leads to the idea that we're meeting the business needs as compared to being in the business of IT. That fundamentally changes how we deal with things if we're less concerned about how IT functions and more concerned about how we're fulfilling the needs of the business. And lastly, the big thing we tell our customers, whether it's on the project side or the managed service side, is don't bring me solutions. Part of it is we are the experts in this. We know how to do this, and we will provide them with the solutions to meet the specific business needs that they have. So in taking all of this, how do we actually get there? How do we become a managed service from going from the project side and migrating a legacy business into this new idea? And part of that really gets around the concept of, you know, being a business that's been around for 30 years. We have to leverage that success that we've had with those particular customers. For us, it's also leveraging the experience for knowing how to solve problems. Over the last 30 years, we've gone through a couple different iterations of our own company. How do we apply that to what we're trying to do for our customers? It's also leveraging the determination for understanding the emerging technologies. You know, as we made those iterations, those changes over the last 30 years, we've embraced the fact that there is change that occurs, and we're applying that to what we're doing today on the managed service side. It's also leveraging the knowledge and the skills it takes to be an AWS Premier Partner. As Stephen talked about before, embracing the fact that we're a partner with Amazon has made this a lot easier. It makes it actually work better for us. And all of this leads to the fact that we need to leverage the detail the customer desires. For us, having a customer be happy with what it is that we've actually done is paramount to us being successful. It really is making sure that the customer comes first, that we are fully meeting the business need of that customer as compared to just trying to scratch our own existence out of it. So in doing all of this, in trying to put together and taking the leverage and the knowledge that we've had, we actually now need to turn that into what it is we need to make a managed service side. So from my standpoint, the way I've actually looked at it is I break it down into a couple different things. I have the tools, the people, and the processes. And when you look through all of these particular pieces, they each come together, overlap, to allow us to actually fulfill our customer needs. You know, on the tool standpoint, we need to have a way to manage customer resource management, ticketing. We need to have monitoring. We need to have reporting. We need to have application performance monitoring and costing, which we'll talk a lot more about in a minute, because this is a big key to what makes us successful and what makes our customers feel that they're getting value for what we do. We also have the processes and the incident response plans, the change management, the onboarding, security, as well as the monthly reviews, all of which go together to ensure that we're providing the best quality service for our customer. And what ties all this together are the people. The people are the pieces that actually utilize the tools and the process to make sure that we're successful, to make sure our customers are successful. All of these make managed services sort of evolve into what it is today. So the next thing I'll talk about is a little bit about the procedures we have today and what those particularly mean to our customers. So the first particular piece is we have our incident response plan. So we actually have a plan, a defined piece that shows what it is we're trying to do for our customers when something goes wrong, what those escalations look like. And when we deal with customers, this may modify specifically on their needs. In other words, we may have customers that have specific escalation plans that involve 3 or 4 people, and we need to escalate through them. So, but having a base plan to work from makes that a lot easier when we're talking to them and defining who it is that needs to get contacted when a particular service no longer works. The other thing is, because of the way Amazon works today, because we are talking about a complex ecosystem, we have to have a very well-defined onboarding procedure that allows us to define all the particular things that we know that our customers are going to need to look after in order to make them successful. And part of that goes through the process of educating them about some of the things I talked about before on those new technologies and ideals when you're applying them to the cloud. How does that work? Are they really thinking through the problems correctly? Are they really defining things based off of service over server? Have they thought through what their SLAs really should be? Do they really need to have redundant systems and multi-AZs? And all of that sort of comes out in our onboarding process when we sit down and go over all of the particular things that we're going to be monitoring for them to give them a good understanding of whether they've architected things correctly or whether there are adjustments that need to be made. Next, talk a little bit about the tools here. I have skipped over the concept of people because people is just a matter of hiring the right people, which we have gotten good at over the last 30 years. So hiring people is a big focus for us, but once we have them, then we can put them on using the processes and the tools. So that's kind of why I skipped over that particular piece. On the tools side, I mentioned a little bit about the different tools that we actually use. For example, we need to have a place for our customers to actually go where they can actually enter tickets, get incident updates, and actually browse solutions for particular problems they might be having. This becomes a single sort of pane of glass for them to see everything that's going on in their environment, all the particular issues and problems that we might be having, as well as giving them the capability to put in requests. And depending on the customers, in some particular cases, this might have standardized templates for the types of requests that they're making. If they're asking for specific instance types, or maybe they're asking for a full stack that we've already predefined with either a CloudFormation or OpsWorks template, we can then just go about doing that. But collecting all of that information is key to us knowing that we're providing them value. So through our service portal, we're also able to give them ticketing. And the ticketing, a ticketing summary that actually shows them how it is we are performing for them. They can see the number of tickets that come in. They can see the SLAs associated with those tickets and whether we're actually meeting them. Because to me, this is an important part of how you're actually validating what we're actually doing for our customers. Because in many instances, they don't ever know we're there if they aren't actually having problems. In some cases, we get those problems, we deal with them, and they will never actually know that anything occurred. So in our particular mind, we need to make sure that we're actually tracking all of those things so we can show them, hey, this is what we did for you. Here's where we applied the patches. Here's where we dealt with particular systems that went down and brought them back up. But of course, all of that has to tie together with something that's actually going to tell you when something goes wrong. So having monitoring in place is a key part of making that work. Now, CloudWatch has some fairly good metrics that you can actually get out of things today, and there are certain alerts that can tell you when a system is down. But one of the failings on that side is there aren't specifics that you can get on how necessarily an instance might be running or how those services might be put together correctly. So in that particular case, we have monitoring over the top of it that allows us to see the specifics for all of those particular pieces. And this is one of the, I think, the value add that comes with it is we can actually show how it is something's performing and see the alerts that are actually coming in. And we can also give these over to our customers as well, so they too can be sort of the first responders when something occurs. And lastly, on the tool side, one of the big pieces we bring together is cost management. And this is where CloudCheckr comes in. All of our customers have a strong desire to understand what they're spending. The idea of driving to the cloud is partly driven around the cost of saving money. Well, understanding what that is a bit tough when you're in a pay-for-what-you-use environment and understanding how that divides up. So CloudCheckr for us has become a key for our customers' ability to understand what it is they're actually seeing on a month-by-month basis. So I'm going to go through a little demo and show you guys what CloudCheckr can do. I'll talk through what we have here today. So when you log into CloudCheckr, the first place we always suggest customers go is to the dashboard, where they can sort of see the breakdown of all the different services that you're using on a month-by-month basis. They can see what they did last month, they can see what they did this month, and they can also delve into the specifics for a month by going to the monthly screen. They can break it down by the specific month and also look at services. For example, let's look at EC2 in this particular instance. And we can see what we actually spent, or in this particular case, this customer spent, over the last month of June. We can then change that and go look at how they actually did in May, and they can see what the increases might have been for that particular month, so they can see that, oh, at that particular date, we spun something new up. And of course, they can also look over a longer period of time and see all of the money. One of the other advantages you get is you actually get the capability to do advanced groupings, which is really kind of like applying pivot tables to all of the different services that you have and see how they group together. One of the big advantages, especially, is on the tagging side, where you can actually take a particular service or tag and really drill down into what that's actually costing you. You can break that down by region, you can break it down by service, in a variety of different ways to understand how those costs apply. You can also look at how you're actually amortizing your RIs on a monthly basis. Unfortunately, in this particular account, it doesn't have any, but if you had RIs, you'd be able to see what you're spending and how they're coming together on a monthly basis. You can also see the specific breakdown of costs as well. One of the best things that CloudCheckr brings you is that single pane of glass for customers to understand specific issues that might be occurring in their account. Specifically, they take the best practices that you get out of Amazon console and apply them to one place. In this particular view, what we're seeing is a single customer that has 6 separate accounts, and it's all rolled together, so they see the best practices for all of them in one place. This gives them the advantage of knowing in one particular area how they're going to deal with things. On the cost-saving side, CloudCheckr allows you to delve into all of the particular areas that a customer might need to look at in order to save money. In this particular case, we're looking at a customer that has multiple accounts, and they can save almost $14,000 a month by doing a variety of things. For example, looking at the idle RDS instances, looking at unused resources, looking at a variety of different places that they can save money on a monthly basis by making subtle changes to their accounts. And all of this is given to you through CloudCheckr's interface today. So they can see how the unused resources are used, all of it. The other thing CloudCheckr does is it allows you to sort of break down, on the EC2 side, you can see the reserved instances and how they're actually broken up. But CloudCheckr has an amazing ability to use a single pane of glass to give you a full understanding of your environment. For example, breaking it down on the inventory side, you guys can see that all of the different service areas give you the capability to understand what is going on, whether it be on the EC2 side, S3 side, RES. You can break it down to a specific instance so you can understand what your cost is associated with that particular piece. Let's say you spin up a instance that's costing you $3,000 a month, you'll be able to understand what that cost is. So one of the other things you get with this on the single pane of glass is the ability to actually create alerts, and these customized alerts allow you to define specific pieces. For example, let's say we wanted to look at login to our EC2 console. We can define a specific alert, define an email that alert is going to go to, and then we can define the specifics on the filters for that. In this particular case, we can also break it down to host or even port if we're looking at other types of alerts. But we can break it down by the console. In this particular case, we're going to look at failed logins to the AWS Management Console. And every time there's a failed login, we're going to get an alert from CloudCheckr for that particular error. Once we create the alert, it becomes active. But this custom alert is on top of what we already have for a variety of pre-builts that are already there. Everything from successful logins, new IP addresses, to new services used. All of this breaks down to really give you a single pane of glass to understand what's going on with your Amazon account. On the customized side, we can of course turn them on or off, and then we can also delete them when we no longer need them. So the other thing that goes into this is you can actually look at the results of those filters. You can see when we've had alerts and how often they've occurred. Also on the security side, you can look into the specifics of your security groups to understand how they're put together, where they exist, which VPCs you have, where those VPCs exist, what security groups are applied to them, so you get a good understanding of everything that's occurring in your environment. Along with that, you get the ability to monitor changes. So you can see all of the changes that are occurring, whether that be new instances added, new groups added, or other specific things you need to worry about. You can also look at your S3 buckets and specifically look at how those buckets are put together, what policies are applied to those buckets, and who has access to them. So you can break it down and literally understand how one file, who has access to it in a single place, which is a lot easier sometimes than sort of jumping into the Amazon console to sort of look at how that particular file is getting access and who has rights to it. All of this, again, through a single pane of glass in CloudCheckr. The other thing you can get is you can understand what your CloudWatch is doing, all of your logs, and your history of that information as well. You can download it if you need to. So the other thing that you get is before we were looking at a multi-view, which is a roll-up of all of the accounts for one customer. One of the advantages you get is when you actually start looking at individual accounts, you can actually delve into the specifics for the cost savings you can get by looking at RIs. In this particular instance, we're looking at all of the particular instance types they have for a particular region and seeing what we can save by doing that. And in this particular case, you get to look at what the actual ROI would be, whether they're doing upfront, a partial commit, or full commit, and they can see the savings as where they need to purchase those particular ROIs. Other ways that CloudCheckr helps you is it divides them up. You can look at the frequency. How often are they running? Because in some instances, we talk about customer environments that may be using auto-scaling groups, so they may not necessarily have the same servers running all the time, but by looking at frequency, you can see how often they're getting used. And this is our customers can do today. Now, one of the things that we do for the managed service side is we actually spend time going over this with our customers to help them save money in these particular areas. So that's our CloudCheckr. And now we're going to talk just a little more about managed service side. So some of the things we do today is we actually go the extra mile for our customers. So in going the extra miles, what we do is, first off, we have 24/7 staff. In other words, we have a fully staffed staff NOC that responds to issues 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if a customer has a question or concern, they can email us or call us, and we'll respond to those particular problems. The other thing we bring to the table is our standard set of tools. So having a very robust project side of the house, in terms of building out a variety of different infrastructures for our customers, we're able to leverage that on the managed service side. So our customers can come to us and utilize that expertise we built up over the years on the project side to best meet their needs by answering questions and problems they have, hopefully by a pre-built package that already does it. We also do best practice review. So not only does the customer get access to the CloudCheckr piece, but we actually spend time with our customers going over that so they understand how to apply some of those, because sometimes there can be some confusion in what it actually is when you're looking through all of those. Another big piece of what we do is we build out the automation around monitoring, because as we know, machines can always work faster than people. So if we have response times for particular issues built into the applications and monitoring that we have today, we're going to have a better response, a better customer experience by having those particular issues dealt with before somebody has to get to them. And this is a big part of what we try to do to make ourselves successful. Is one, it helps keep our cost lower by having less manual interactions, but two, makes our customer experience much better. We also do security management. So if a customer has a SOC, we can help work with them and that security operations center to deal with particular problems and issues that might be coming up. We can also look at the security groups and other best practices to answer questions and concerns that they might have. And one of the big value adds that we have as an MSP is we actually bring about a monthly and cost review, as well as a cost review and architecture review for our customers, so they understand how they're utilizing the Amazon environment. We can talk about new features and functionalities that Amazon has, as well as providing answers to questions that they might have on the cost that they're associated with those particular things. All of these things together are what's sort of changing the managed service landscape. And for us, that means sort of providing these value-added services along with embracing the ideas and changes that sort of come with the cloud today. So that's about CorpInfo, and I'm going to pass it over to Aaron, and he can talk a little more about CloudCheckr.
So I appreciate it. I hope everybody learned a little bit. I think we've listened to sort of the experts at CorpInfo, Steve and Tim, and we can tell you from our side of the coin that they are definitely succeeding in this new environment. And I think Tim probably gave us a lot of insight into the keys behind it. You know, not just thinking about it from the old world resale perspective, but thinking of it from a new world service perspective and how to do that. So I just want to take a second and roll through a few slides about us, you know, what CloudCheckr is. I think Tim's done a terrific job, probably better than I could have done in terms of outlining it. So hopefully this will just be quick. We are really a unified cost and security platform. We are designed to make it very easy for managed service providers, for resellers, and for enterprise users to understand what's happening in their environment, for MSPs to better service their customers, to do what Tim spoke about using tools and using automation to do, instead of spending expensive man hours, doing things that tools can do for you. You know, and then that enables you to pass those savings on to your customers. Your customers recognize this and will, of course, grow, become loyal, recommend more customers, and your business will really take off. But one of the keys is leveraging up what's available from Amazon, leveraging up what's available, you know, from third-party tools. Right? CloudCheckr itself, we do cloud governance, we do cost management, and we, of course, do security analysis. You know, so it's everything from tracking your inventory, allowing your customers to know what they have, or allowing you as a service provider to understand that I have 62 customers spread across 7 different regions running 3,500 VMs. These are the sort of information that you need to run your business. Doing cost management, giving your end user visibility into their costs, because they're going to demand that. They're going to demand that as you as a reseller, but also helping you increase your margins. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but it's really a sort of a key aspect is that in the old world, if you were reselling hardware, there were these very big, thick margins, and of course, Amazon operates in a thin margin environment. And then, of course, the last piece is that security analysis, that alerting that Tim ran through. That gives you the ability to really upsell, to value add to your customers, to sell them additional services and layer it in, making it, again, easy for you to increase the margin, to turn the thin Amazon margin into a very profitable business. Right? So let's just talk a moment about reselling AWS. And as we know, you know, Amazon is runs lean and is going to demand that you run lean. But really what you can do as you scale up your business is you can buy reserved instances, you can buy reserved usage, and you should. CloudCheckr enables you to purchase these resources and then resell that reserved capacity to your customers, driving your profit margins, moving your profit margins from you know, the single digits up into the 15, 20, even 25% range, simply by being able to do that. We're going to programmatically recast your bill so your customer is going to see the correct, optimized, on-demand bill, but still allow you to purchase reserved resources and capture that margin for yourself. We're also going to help you add value on top of reselling, and that's the managed services and security. Right? And when you think of managed services and security, that is turning to your customer and saying, hey, I'm not just handing off the business to you. I'm not just a pass-through, but we're gonna have skilled, talented people, the way CorpInfo has. We're gonna bring in folks who understand what Amazon means, how to use it. we're going to watch your security so that you can feel very, very comfortable using the cloud. And that security monitoring is something that we see as a high volume driver of revenue. We see folks really going after that business because it's in tremendous demand. If anyone's looked at a job board, if anyone's looked at a posting, they'll see that there's always demand for AWS security experts. And if you can bring them onto your staff and you can deliver that value to your customers, you're going to have a thriving business. So on to sort of some of the problems and some of the things that you're going to run into in terms of reselling Amazon. You're going to run into issues around invoicing, where you have lots of customers. Amazon's going to deliver it to you in one single bill, and your question is going to be, how do I keep track of it? How do I price it out on this, on these margins? How do I efficiently do that? That's something that we can help you with. We create account families where you can create essentially a virtual third layer of infrastructure in terms of how you've aligned your accounts. Amazon, of course, is obviously giving you the detailed billing report and the master payer and the payees, but we're going to let you create that virtual layer in between. You're going to be able to do custom charges and rates. So you can have specific rates with your customers. You can also generate benefits from Amazon and capture that margin for yourself. And of course, last, I think, as Tim mentioned, one of their key components, every customer wants to know what they're spending in the cloud. They need that visibility. And for you to provide them visibility, you want a tool that's going to give them, A, accurate visibility in real time that they can see, and B, allow you to continue to capture the benefits of being a reseller, of running a consolidated bill, of purchasing resources. And that's something that we do programmatically. We offer 4 different layers of access, and so you can control what your customer is going to see and at the same time efficiently run your business. And just the last word on value-added services, because we truly don't think that, and I think it's proven that reselling alone is not a business. You need to identify problems. You need to look at best practices. You need to generate true value add for your end user, and that could be through security monitoring, watching things like Cloud Trail events, security group trail changes, or CloudWatch logs. It could be doing audits or gap analysis, running a security audit for your customer, creating a month-end report of changes in their environment, of changes that you performed, or really creating a report showing what needs to be done, at which point, rather than asking a customer to pay you for looking for issues, you're going to your customers and you're saying, hey, I'm solving these issues. And that's, in everyone's mind, that delivers very clear value. And that's something that CorpInfo has really excelled at delivering, that value to the customer where they feel like that the managed service provider is a true partner, as opposed to somebody who they're like going, oh God, I have to deal with. Of course, you also want to monitor resource utilization. People are going to the cloud from a how do I find value perspective. And a large part of that is appropriately using resources and appropriate using utilization. As an MSP, you can use our reports to deliver maps showing, heat maps showing usage. You can also create customized reports for upsizing and downsizing of resources. Again, you can show month-end and 3-month and 6-month reports showing that you're efficiently managing your customer's environment, so that when they come to you and say, hey, why is our spend going up, or why, what could we do to reduce spend, you can come back with actionable recommendations, and then you can say, you can layer in services where you implement them. And of course, the last piece is the reserved usage recommendations. And this is really a value that you can give to your customers, but this is a critical component of your business. You need to be able to capture the margin associated with this to run a successful business. Capturing that margin, as I said, can drive you from single digits up into the low 20s in terms of margin. So you're kind of coming to the question end. I saw a few questions seem to pop up. But before I go, I just want to reiterate that I think CorpInfo really hit on the key components of running a successful business and growing a business. The first, of course, being the ability to deliver better services to your clients, the ability to have trained people, the ability to add value. The second being efficient in how you deliver those services, being able to use tools, leverage outside third parties to create economies of scale, to capture to capture all the opportunity of the cloud. And of course, the third piece is being able to increase your margin through resale, through reserved usage, through layering and services. I think when you hit all three of those pieces, you end up with a result like CorpInfo's, where they go from 0 to Premier in a year and a half. And with that, I'll pass it over to Jared to see if we have any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We do have a few questions so far. So everybody else, feel free to ask questions if you have any, but I'm going to start with the ones that we do have right now. The first question, what are you using ticketing system and custom portal?
So when I came on board, one of the things I looked at was the variety of different ticketing systems that existed out there today. So I wanted to find one that better matched to the ideals of the cloud. So I sort of did a full evaluation of a variety of different ones. And the one I actually came to was a company called Freshservice. They have a specific ticketing service that is oriented toward managed service providers, so you can divide things up based off of companies. They are a full SaaS offering and actually themselves run in Amazon, so they do have tie-ins into Amazon using APIs, which make management a little easier. And that also provides us the front end for our customers as well. So that's where they get to log in, and then we've been able to customize it so that when a customer actually logs in there, they can actually click on CloudCheckr and it takes them directly there as well. So from our standpoint, we get a little bit of a seamless interface for them to go from that particular piece over to CloudCheckr.
Awesome. And the second question is, does CloudCheckr provide right sizing analysis based on actual server metrics?
Sure. So we are collecting CloudWatch metrics. We're collecting network. We're collecting disk I/O. We're collecting CPU utilization. We also have the ability to ingest custom CloudWatch metrics. So if you are delivering, if you have set a custom metric to collect memory, we will ingest that, and we will put that together to give you sizing recommendations.
Okay. Another question, I guess this could be for any of you guys, but it says, what is the lowest hanging fruit that I can address that will help me save the most cost the quickest?
Tim here. I think the best way to say that is when you look at the savings tab of CloudCheckr, you get to see the right sizing piece of it. So you can actually look at particular instances that are not being used. You can look at older systems that you need to deprecate and switch that out for newer instances on AWS. That's probably the quickest place to go see what you can do today using the portal.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, one of the things to keep in mind is that almost everyone's largest cost is EC2, and if you can downsize an instance, you're immediately cutting your server cost in half, not necessarily your network and your other costs, but you're immediately cutting your server cost in half. And one of the most common things, and I guess I'll defer to Tim and Steve on this if they see it differently, but one of the most common things we see in people is people oversizing. They're still thinking of things in the old world, and they're still thinking in terms of, I have this budget, let me buy the biggest box I can. But in Amazon, that's just not the right way to go about it. So if you can sort of break that paradigm of thought, you're gonna save a lot of money right off the bat.
Yeah, that's I think one of the fundamental shifts that you need to have, especially when you start dealing with the cloud, is getting a good understanding of what resources an application might be using. You know, for example, we came across a customer the other day and noticed that they had provisioned basically 100,000 IOPS across a variety of different CBS volumes. We started asking the questions of why, and what we came to was, well, that's because that's the way their on-prem SAN worked. But then when we delved into the question of how much actually IOPS were they actually utilizing on that SAN, we went from needing 100,000 down to needing 10. So 10,000. So it was a big difference, and it does force you to sort of shift how you're thinking, is to look at what resources a particular application or service are utilizing to better meet the need of the business as compared to, as I said, being in the business of IT.
Okay. And we have 2 questions left. I'm just going to put out a last call for questions. So if you have any other questions, please submit them now. But one is, can we get this recording? And I can answer that. Both CorpInfo and us at CloudCheckr are going to be posting this on our YouTube channel and website, so you can get it there. Or if you send me an email, I can send you the link to the video once it is uploaded. And the second question is, invoicing is a very labor-intensive process right now and can frankly be error-prone. What type of tools does CloudCheckr include to assist in invoicing?
And I'll jump in with what we do, and then I think it's probably worthwhile to understand how CorpInfo goes through their process of doing it as well. But what we're doing is essentially recasting the Amazon bill and then making it available in a variety of formats. So there's a whole section on partner tools that allows you to apply and suppress credits, to allocate credits, to recast pricing, to put in custom pricing tiers, and to create account families and create invoices that way. From that, it's exportable in a variety of formats, including via API and via CSV. We have people who send invoices directly and schedule them in CloudCheckr and send them directly from CloudCheckr to their customers. We also have folks who are pulling down the CSVs and importing it into their own system. I suspect that it's probably a mix and depends on whether you're looking at it from a pure resale perspective or whether you're looking to also add in services. I mean, we have the features to add in custom services and custom charges, but I know that it's not necessarily adapted for a multiple environment, multiple customer charge. A lot of times, I think we see the bigger customers using us as the Amazon piece of the invoice and the Amazon detailed record. But I'd be interested in hearing how Steve and Tim are using it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, whoever asked the question has obviously definitely got some exposure to the pains of invoicing. The Amazon resale piece is actually an area that you can add quite a lot of value, because Amazon themselves have one sort of fixed approach to this, the single monthly invoice typically for customers, and that doesn't fit all customers' businesses. Some people want it broken out in different ways, and that is an opportunity for us to really kind of step in and provide some value add there. So that's what we do. We basically pull at the most generic level, we pull the statements directly from CloudCheckr, and then we feed the kind of headline data from that statement into our existing invoicing system, because, you know, I imagine most people's business has a lot of other activity other than just the AWS spend, so we weren't going to be just changing and rolling a new invoicing system out entirely to cover this piece. So basically we pull the statements from CloudCheckr. Some customers want lots of different information. Some customers just want a headline single charge per month, and we feed that into our invoicing system at the high level, and then provide customers with the backing documentation from CloudCheckr for that information. But there'll be lots of opportunities to do custom billing solutions to help clients out. You know, some of our customers extensively use tagging, and they need their bill broken out into, let's say, an invoice per account, even though they're consolidated. They want separate invoices, and you're able to do that as a reseller, whereas Amazon is a little more strictly governed by their invoicing process. But yeah, fundamentally, we take the statements from CloudCheckr based on the customer requirement. We then feed that information into our accounting system and use ultimately the CloudCheckr statements as the backing documentation. But we definitely encourage all of our customers to continually monitor their usage through the CloudCheckr dashboard. We worked a lot with CloudCheckr on rolling out that dashboard, and usually it's better for them to do that, because then they're on top of the spend as it progresses throughout the month, rather than getting a shock at the end of each calendar month when the invoice comes.
And we have one more question that came in, so this will be the last question unless anything else comes in, but it says, CorpInfo, can you talk more about the upfront investment to get started as an MSP and transition your business? Was it a handful of folks or dozens?
Sure. Yeah, it was a fairly significant investment. You know, in forming our partnership with Amazon, we really led out with the project consulting piece first. We've been an MSP for over 20 years now, so things like building out a 24/7 NOC and building out a lot of the processes and systems for having a large staff. We didn't have to go through those steps, but it was a fairly good size, not possibly as much as a dozen focused individuals from the get-go, but it's now up over that amount, and that's been basically primarily through reutilizing the legacy MSP business that we had, and also net new additions to the team, Tim being one of those as the head of the department. But, if you're just starting out, really I would say that it's a lot easier to build an MSP today than it was to build one 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I'm aware of MSPs operating very successfully in this space with a very lean support staff, typically a couple of offshore individuals for time zone coverage, and a couple of onshore individuals for daylight hour coverage, and you can be surprised at how big an infrastructure you're able to support with a team of that size, given all the tooling and the automation that Tim was talking about in his presentation.
And we got one more for Tim and Steve, and it says, CorpInfo, do you still have legacy customers in other data centers?
We do, yeah. We as a 30-year-old business, we have customers that have been with us over 20 years with traditional environments and traditional systems, and the vast majority are on a roadmap to cloud adoption. They have some degree of hybrid in state at present. There are some that have gone all into the cloud with us. But yeah, we didn't abandon customers that don't fit our new model, but we're going to be there to transition them as and when they need to do so. It makes sense for them.
All right, and I don't see any more questions coming in, so I'd like to say thank you everyone for attending our webinar today. The presentation, as I said before, will be available upon request and will also be published on our website and YouTube channel.